Ladies and gentlemen, the boys are back. This is Weighing In, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. GT back again. Mark Ostrander back in the saddle. Two things, Mark. I know you saw family, and I know you had some minor surgery. All joking aside, we got love for you. Did the surgery go okay, and how was the family visit?
Yeah, the surgery went okay. I had carpal tunnel surgery. They had to go in my hand and cut a band that was surrounding the nerves, and that's why I had no feeling in my right hand, lost a lot of the strength. So hopefully that will heal up in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and I'll be good to go again. Family visit was outstanding. Didn't get to see as much about Ben as I wanted. He went up to the Minnesota Vikings game and watched the Monday night game. We came in on Sunday, so I got to see him Tuesday. He bought a new house there. Thomas is buying a new house there. So, yeah, they're doing well. The grandkids are doing great. We went to a little festival, pumpkin festival that I've never heard of in downtown Chicago. It's really neat. She's in her terrible twos, and she proved there are such a thing as terrible twos because she's in a great mood 1 minute and not in a very good mood the next. So it was a lot of fun, though, seeing everybody.
GT, I just thought of something that is truly depressing. I just realized Mark is like 20 strokes better than me in golf, and he had carpal tunnel.
He couldn't feel anything in his right hand, so
yeah, like spies like us, yeah. Like, man, that's depressing. It's really depressing to think about. So, well, I'm glad you're good. Glad, I obviously, I'm good friends with your sons. We all play fantasy football together. Ben and I talk on a regular basis. So glad you guys got to do all that. Speaking of good news, men's freestyle U23 World Champions, United States of America. So GT, we're going to go through the weights, but just you're obviously, all joking aside, you're the youngest guy on this pod, but you're the guy that's been heavily involved at the international level, the longest of the three of us. It feels like, we talk about this fairly regularly, but it feels like we're in the golden age of USA Wrestling, not just at the senior level, but U15s, U17s, U20s, U23s. This is another significant performance for the United States. And just so people understand, we're recording this on Thursday. The women's wrestling is almost done. We're just going to talk about the men's this week and then give our full attention to the women's and Greco next week. There's obviously been some great women's performances so far, but just so that they get their full week of shine, we're going to do it that way. Anyway, GT, pretty incredible experience, especially how top heavy we were with gold medals, correct?
Yeah, I think it's, having a lot of our, even say Zaf, he had like a month, call up, right? And then he ends up getting into a bronze medal match and placing fifth. So and once again, we talked on the pod last week. I was really encouraged to see how we handle 65 kilos with Brock Hardy, and he comes back with a bronze medal. So just in general on kind of how everything basically came out for us. Gold medal for Isaac Trumbull, looked really good.
Yes.
So just as that kind of, when you say the golden age of wrestling, I really do think that with the way that the weight classes are and the way that the world is set up currently, USA is performing at probably the highest level consistently that they have since probably the mid-90s.
Yeah.
Back in, the 93, 95, 96 era. World champs in 93, world champs in 95, tons of Olympic medals in 96. I don't know if they won the Olympics in wrestling. I'm pretty sure that they had to have. They had once again, to just go through the list, a lot of medals, probably 6-8 medals, right? So, and then we had probably one of the best Olympic showings for men's freestyle in Tokyo with that group. So, and, just with everything that we got going on, specifically, let's go back to the U23 age category. Isaac Trumbull, world champion U23s. A couple of years ago, Tony Cassiope, world champion at U23s. We're doing very well at the age group categories globally, and it's not slowing down.
Yeah, I think an obvious sentence, but one worth saying is that, like, you know, like on the folk style scene, like kids that win a lot at Tulsa generally are pretty good high school wrestlers. People that win like Fargo and stuff are generally pretty good college wrestlers. And people that win NCAA titles and age group medals end up being pretty good senior level wrestlers. And sometimes when two things are correlated, it's difficult to figure out which one is the causation of the other, or if they're independent. But as we go through the men's brackets, what you'll see is the guys that have done the best at the NCAA level pretty much did the best here. I mean, it was almost directly proportional. No one really dramatically out wrestled like what they've done at the NCAA level, and no one certainly under wrestled what they've done at the NCAA level. So if you're watching this, we got the brackets up here. We're just going to go through by weight class. We won't spend a lot of time on the weights where we didn't medal. Cooper Flynn was in the prelims. He won 4-1. Then he got beat 11-0. And then his athlete made it to the finals, took second. So Flynn goes into the backsides and lost 3-2. And then based on the points, even though it looked like he would be like seventh or something, he didn't have enough good points, so he doesn't place in the top 10. Julian Klebo, who was a very good high school wrestler coming out, obviously all these guys were, but has sat behind Mikhail McGee. He wins 11-0 round 1. He loses 14-3 round 2 in the quarters, Then his athlete pulls him through. He goes to the backside and loses 11-0 to the eventual third place wrestler. So, you know, maybe he could have taken fifth because that guy also beat him. You know, the guy that took third beat both guys 11-0, but he ends up placing seventh. I'm probably going to just do these in bundles and then we'll get a summary. Brock Hardy, as GT mentioned, bronze medalist, just finding him here in the bracket. He beat Sammy Alvarez, who's at Oklahoma State, wrestling for Puerto Rico, 12-7. Then he beats the Ukrainian wrestler 11-0, loses a barn burner against Azerbaijan 14-11. That guy pulls him through to the backside. Hardy wins 7-4 and 8-5 to medal. Let's take a breath. Mark, 57, 61, 65. Takeaways.
Kind of 57 is kind of what I thought. I mean, we're kind of, I don't know. It seems like we're struggling a little bit right now with that weight, but there's so many good kids out there from all the other countries. I mean, you know, we were doing really well there last few years. And then it's like in the last year and a half, it seems like we're struggling a little bit, but I'm not too worried about it.
Are you saying we're struggling at the age group level or at the senior level?
At the senior level. Because what I'm looking here, David, is these kids are the backup to the senior level. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. And we're
no disrespect to Cooper Flynn. No disrespect to Cooper Flynn, but he'd probably be the 9 seed at the Olympic trials. Yes. I mean, like, so it's not like he's second to the throne right now.
Correct. But a lot of these kids are going to be second to the throne in a few years. Maybe not right now, but in a couple of years, because we got some guys that have been doing this a long time, and we'll get in some of the upper weights. So, but, you know, Klebo being an Arizona State boy, I was impressed with the way he wrestled. I think he's going to do a really good job at Arizona State at 133 for him.
Yeah.
And I think he did a good job here. This is probably, you know, some of these guys, this is their first big international events that they wrestle in. So they get their feet wet, and it's going to carry over into the NCAAs. And Brock Hardy, I think people forget, and I know we've done rankings and we do our predictions, how good he was last year for most of the season. Early on, he got a couple losses that you just can't figure out why. And then he came on like barn busters, and then he got hurt at the NCAAs and tried to wrestle with one arm. So, you know, kudos to him coming back and getting third. He's the real deal. He's going to make noise at 141 this year at the NCAAs.
Yeah, GT, you mentioned this, but Hardy with a great performance. All 3 of these guys, I believe, was their first world team tournament. And so we're so used to people just winning, like right out of the gate, that we're just spoiled. But, you know, a lot of times it is a process, right? Like everybody doesn't win state as a freshman. Everyone doesn't win nationals as a freshman. Sometimes you qualify. And then maybe you go, like I heard Ben Askren talking about how Mako moved up a step each year, like was round of 16, round of 12, and then All-American. And a lot of people, that's their path, unless you're just a freak. So, to me, Klebo's a low-key All-American candidate. I think I picked him to take 7th or 8th, and we can go back and review those. But I certainly think you jump levels on these trips, right? I think you, as a guy that works for Nike, probably you're way more comfortable in big situations having done trips, than you were 5-10 years ago. Is that a fair sentence?
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you're around these kind of things and you're also around people that are winning and you realize they're not that different than you, that helps a ton too. So Grant mentioned Doug Zaff here. So he's in the qualifying round, wins 12-1, then he wins 7-0, then he wins 3-3, then he loses in the semifinals 9-2 to the Russian athlete who ends up being the world champion. And then on the backside, he loses 9-2, to Azerbaijan. So he places 5th. He was substituting for Sammy Sasso. 74, Keegan O'Toole, Keegan O'Cradles, whatever you want to call him. He goes 10-0, 12-2, 10-1, pin while up 6-0, and 6-1 in the finals. So we'll take then we'll go 79, take these three together. 79, Platt went 0-1. So I'll go first here. Couple things. I think just to reiterate what GT said, Zaff coming off the bench and making it to a medal match is hugely significant. And Penn needs a couple guys like him, Composto, to really escalate that program at the NCAA level. Obviously, their RTC is significant with like Tyler Berger and David McFadden and obviously Jordan Burroughs. Plot 0-1, you can't lose 2-2 matches because that guy's not going to pull you through to the finals. I mean, I think we've all coached those matches and know that stuff. You lose to somebody, you're like, man, we're going to be on the backside for an hour and a half in college. And Keegan O'Toole, I texted Tyrell Todd, and I'm like, it seems like he's gotten stronger. It looks like he's gotten faster. And it looks like he's getting more to his offense and not just waiting. And he didn't disagree. I'll just say that. I mean, the conversation's a private conversation, but he didn't disagree. And something else I'll say is like some of these guys that wrestled are still in college. Almost all of them are. Like Cooper Flynn's taking an Olympic red shirt. Some of these guys you're not going to see in their team's early season meets. Like these schools are going to give these guys a week or two to reacclimate their bodies, get back in classes. So like I'm doing the play-by-play for the Mizzou invite in a couple weeks. Odds are you may not see Keegan O'Toole. Maybe Klebo and Schultz don't wrestle in the duel against Mizzou. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. So, GT, just how impressive, I guess, Zaff and O'Toole to you?
I think the biggest thing for, let's say, Keegan O'Toole from his last year of the U23 run, like he kind of sneaked through it. Like he had to come back. He got a couple of cradles. Like he was getting beat, and then all of a sudden pinned a dude in the last year run. And then I think he was probably as dominant as he possibly could be. Kind of all the way through here. Like, yeah, he looked really, really, really good. And to your point, like the way that he wrestled, his tactics, his presence, I think, he looks better at the weight. Another year of maturity on these college kids, as Mark can attest to, like 365 days on a kid that like is kind of a baby faced young athlete at U23s, and then continue to put on like that Division I strength program to them really pays off some dividends. And then, of course, like Zaff, he's already a really talented senior level freestyle guy within the U.S. So getting the call up, that's a big, big win for USA Wrestling to say, hey, we have some depth and a bench, especially in our collegiate system, that we can have somebody step in at a month's notice, go to the World Championships and get into a medal match.
Yeah. The other thing is O'Toole's like, he had that free year, the COVID year. So like they were going to redshirt him and they wrestled him. So he's got a chance to be a 4-time national champ, 5-time All-American. But, he's got that baby face. And he hasn't, he's not like out of shape, but wasn't hugely ripped. He's just kind of like a kid that's growing into his body. So Mark, I mean, we're going to talk about Aaron Brooks in a minute and how different physically he looks. But O'Toole's another guy that looks like he's been hitting the training table and the weight room in the most productive way.
And I think he's probably one of the most improved college wrestlers from the day he came in till now. He's just elevated his performances to a different level. So he uses folk style and freestyle about as good as anybody in the United States, except for maybe David
Taylor.
So, and they enjoy that part. And these international kids, I mean, they don't see it that often. So, they're not used to trying to stay out of a position when they're wrestling them. And it just makes it so much easier for him to score big points when he needs them. And the thing between, like Grant said earlier, last year, he had to come from behind in like 2 or 3 matches to win. This year, there was no coming from behind. He pretty much put his foot on the pedal right at the beginning and ran through the whole tournament. So pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Like, you can win and it's how you win. Like the first year I won state, I snuck through the tournament. The last year I wrestled in it, I tech-falled everybody. The medals look the same, but your level of dominance, your level of improvement are certainly different. And that's what these guys are doing at the highest level. Keegan also talked a lot about his faith, so he seems like he's a young man that's really comfortable in his own skin. You see more and more kids that are talking about it's just a wrestling match. And I think that the more that young men, young women, even grown-ups can look at it like that, there's a chance for optimal performance. If you put so much pressure on yourself, it's just like if we say this has got to be the greatest podcast ever, someone's going to stutter, someone's going to get a fact wrong. And if you're like, we're going to do our best and, we're going to make USA Wrestling proud, but if we make a mistake, we're going to edit it and keep it moving, the odds of you doing better are significantly higher. So the last 4 weights here are going to take a few minutes because the USA came correct at these last 4 weights. So this will take a little longer, folks. Aaron Brooks goes 5-1, 10-0, 7-0. 5-4, but a pin, and then 10-0 in the finals. Everybody correctly said that his hardest match was going to be the semifinals against the Russian, and it was. He won 10-0 in the finals against the Japanese wrestler, Shirai. 92, Cardenas, the pride of Bergen Catholic, goes by 4-3. Big win there because he gets him in against the Turk, who he lost to 10-1. The Turk pulls him through and ends up winning the whole tournament. That's the other thing. The Americans pretty much hit all the good guys, either in the weights that they didn't, obviously the weights they won, but even the ones they didn't. Then Cardenas goes 6-0, 4-3 to take bronze. And then, as the guys mentioned, Trumbull wins it 14-3, 11-0, 11-0, 12-2. That's from a young man that hasn't All-American yet. I think there's another level jumper. And then America's heavyweight, Wyatt Hendrickson, banged up, goes 17-9 with a fall, then 14-1 tech fall. Really tough match in the semifinal 4-2. And then tech fall while injured in the finals to win the gold medal. So at these 4 weights, we have gold, bronze, gold, gold. It's a ton of team points. It's why America won. Let me pull up the final team score just so that people can see that. 66-55. So they must keep team score a little bit differently there, because if it's 25 for first, which it is at the senior level, they would do it differently. So GT, Brooks, Cardenas. I don't even know if it's fair to ask you about all 4 of these. Maybe just collectively. I'll say this. Brooks looks huge. Okay. Cardenas super impressive. I think he's a factor at 197. I'll just say like 1 bullet point in each of these guys. Trumbull taking an Olympic redshirt year. I think a lot of that weight graduates. I think he's going to be a major factor at 197 the following year. And Wyatt Hendrickson, if Gable does not wrestle, is a low-key chance to make the Olympic team. He lost to Mason Paris, but had a very, very competitive match with him in the Colorado Springs tournament.
Yep.
And is, ranked in the top 2 in the country right now without Gable, with him and Kirkfleet at the top of that. GT, the floor is yours.
Okay. I'm going to throw a little bit of wrestling nerd knowledge at you here a little bit. So Aaron Brooks just absolutely continues to amaze me at the age group category level. Like he's, been really good at our senior level tournament, basically coming up, behind David Taylor for this past world championship team member spot, is in position to be one of the guys to challenge DT for the Olympic spot heading into Paris Olympic Games. Continues to just be really, really, really talented on both the collegiate and the international scene. Bagayev, the guy that he wrestled from Russia, was also the senior level world championship wrestler for AIN. So super really talented guy, only 20-year-old guy from AIN. So epic battles for that continue to pop up. I'd say probably in another senior level note, Kurbanov, that Wyatt Hendrickson wrestled in the first round from AIN, was the representative at the Senior Wrestling World Championships, where he had to wrestle Mason Paris to qualify the Olympic spot for their, to basically qualify the weight class for their country for the Olympic Games. So once again, some senior level talent to also transition from the U23 to the senior level. Some of these guys are the best in their countries, representing their countries at 2 age group categories. So we do see that, not necessarily do you see that a ton in the US because we're just so deep right now at the senior level.
Right.
But some of these other countries that are represented here at the U23 championships, that is the best person that they have in the entire country that is representing them at both categories. So you're not only just getting, like, as Mark was saying, it maybe like heirs to the kingdom. They're getting the king of their country. Like, they're getting the guy that is representing them at both age group categories.
It's a great point. It's a really great point because, like, really on our team, the only person we see doing stuff like that on a regular basis is Amita Lohr. Like on the men's side, all of our top guys are aged out of U23s. But anyways, it's just a great point that these guys are not just winning titles, but they're winning titles against super quality competition. And if you don't follow this stuff regularly, like, oh, they beat the Russian or they beat the Azerbaijani or they beat the Japanese wrestler, and you don't necessarily know how good they are. Mark, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to say? These guys, Trumbull, kid from Nebraska. He's from Nebraska. That's where he came out of high school.
What's wrong with that?
Nebraska's not a real strong high school wrestling state.
Hey, don't say that to George Ivanov. Don't say that to Zach Dominguez. Don't say that to Zach Dominguez, GT.
I don't care. I don't care. They know it. It's not normally a real strong wrestling high school, and he's come out of
state. You don't
state.
pass.
State. I'm talking about going into college, high school system. You don't see a lot of kids being heavily recruited out of Nebraska. This kid is a phenomenal freestyler. He's a phenomenal wrestler because he does some really unorthodox stuff, and he's really hard to wrestle. Real tall, real lanky. He was impressive. Obviously, the heavyweight is as good as they come from the Air Force. You can't ask for a better storyline. I think he is going to make noise this year at the NCAAs, and I think he's going to be around for a while, if I'm not mistaken, at the senior level. He's that good. Because, as good as Gable is, and Gable to me is one of the best heavyweights I've ever seen wrestle in my life, and I've seen a lot of them. I teammate with Baumgartner. I've seen some of the best. Gable has that it thing. He just has it, and he's really good at this sport. And if he did it full time and this was all he did, I don't think anyone would touch him for years. But he's got other, things he's doing. So, but
I think it's fair to say for heavyweight, if you go, it's obviously TBD everything, but who will represent the United States in 24. But if you just said we had Mason Paris or Wyatt Hendrickson for 28, in 25 to 28, feels like our country's in really good hands. And obviously there's other really good heavyweights that are coming up that are in college now. Some guys maybe, that are just high school kids now that'll be a part of that cycle. And like we said, Hendrickson and GT probably was there or knows all about it. That Hendrickson-Mason Paris match was crazy in Colorado Springs. Like Hendrickson almost broke Mason Paris's ribs. Paris
was it 16-14 or something?
It was absolutely absurd match. Like,
yes.
Like it was kind of like almost like basketball. Like people had runs.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Like 6, then they came back 4 and then 2, then another run of 6. Like it kept going back and forth and teetering. And to be honest, like that was, yeah. I mean, you very well could have had Wyatt Henderson being the senior, well, making it to Final X, where then he would have had to wrestle Gable, and then.
But then he would have went in. He would have went in like Paris did, like you're saying. Right.
But, you know, just because Gable didn't take the spot for our senior world team, it would have been whoever would have gone on to the Final X location. It's very encouraging to see that level of like still 2 very competitive athletes still in the U.S. at an age group category where they're both kind of right there at that U23, U24, 8 or 23 and 24 age category. Yep. So yeah, the future is very bright if those guys want to continue to stick around and represent the United States at, you know, the senior level, right? So, and it's becoming financially sustainable for these guys to continue to train and live and work that lifestyle within the U.S. because you're seeing a lot of benefits of it.
Well, Wyatt Hendrickson, the Air Force should do everything they can to keep Wyatt Hendrickson happy because, like, I know some kids that are going there, and he's helping their recruiting tremendously, and that's a good thing. You're right. The basketball analogy is perfect, Grant. Like, I think Paris was up 8, and then Hendrickson got a takedown and 3 gut wrenches, and then Paris got a takedown, and then Hendrickson was in like on a low-level single or something where he almost scored that would have won him the match with like 1 second left, and it was like Paris was a little lackadaisical on his defense and almost, cost him. And then we end up going to, you know, where Paris is now. The thing that people may forget is Paris is the one sitting in Final X now. It's not Gable. Paris medaled. So Paris is waiting. You know, so the bracket's going to have, assuming Gable wrestles, Gable, Hendrickson, and all the other usual suspects. So the other important thing to point out when you mentioned about Brooks, GT, is yes, he was Final X runner-up or world team member runner-up. But like Zahid, because he lost a step early, went to the trials at 92, made the team and took bronze, and he lost to Brooks. So, you know, Brooks probably feels like maybe I could have won the worlds at 92, certainly could have medaled. I beat a guy that medaled. So, I mean, he probably expects to win. I mean, I think I've told that story where Kevin Jackson told me when Brooks made, I think it was the 17 or 20 team, U17, U20, when Whitlake got hurt, that Brooks was a late call-up, and he showed up, and he brought his own American flag. That's some mindset stuff right there. That's some mindset stuff, you know, like you speak that stuff into existence. That's manifestation. That's all that positive mental imagery. It's all that thought process. So anyway, we will talk. Congratulations to USA Wrestling, United States of America, all those clubs, all those RTCs, all those college coaches, all those high school coaches, all those kids coaches, all the training partners, everybody that's poured into those 10 young men. And we're going to wait. Like I said, we're going to give their shine next week to women's and Greco. Super 32s are in the books. We could talk about that easily for a half an hour. I guess the highlights for me, and, you know, if anybody else wants to jump in, the women's or girls division, I guess at that age, getting bigger and bigger, more and more entries in super high level wrestling. Pennsylvania and New Jersey, Willie put out a bunch of statistics. They had, I think, almost the 27 of the 112 placers, so just under 25%. I think they had 10 of the 14 champs, which is just insane. So, and then I think probably the biggest thing, which we can talk about later because it's going to come up soon enough in college, is the 3-point takedown. I talked to a couple coaches who were there, and they said, like, they like the 3-point takedown, but you got to get referees that know how to call that and the boundaries and some other things. I'll tell you this, selfishly, a bunch of those kids come from really good high schools, and a bunch of those high schools are wrestling in the Hall of Fame duels. So I'm super excited to see a bunch of those kids in person in a couple months down there in Stillwater. You guys want to jump in on anything on Super 32s, or you want to keep it moving?
I thought Knox was really impressive. This kid can wrestle, and I guess he signed with Cornell right after the Super 32s.
Can't sign. There's no signing.
Okay, he committed to Cornell.
I'm just
My
making
bad.
sure they don't sign because there are no
Okay.
scholarships. But yeah,
He committed
he-
to Cornell, so that's a huge get for them because he's going to be around for a while. He's legit. He looked really good. So did the kid from Oklahoma, David, that you're friends with.
Ladarian Lockett.
Yep, looked really good.
He had a
Nasty-
weird finals match, kind of just hung out.
Nasty duck under he has. Oh boy.
Yeah, it was very nice of me. He wore his Oklahoma Border Brawl stuff on day one. So shout out to Nike. The two-piece was looking crispy. So we appreciate that. I will say this, probably the kid I think, almost all these kids everybody knows, and this guy won a Fargo title, but Melvin Miller's a freshman that won this tournament at like a middle weight class. That kid's really good, and that's good because Bishop McCourt doesn't have a lot of talent on that team as it is, with Jax and Bo Bassett and everybody else. So, but he may end up being as good as all those guys. So, Howard, Bill, if you're watching, we're trying to get you guys down to Hall of Fame duels next year. Let's make it happen. So, we want those kids in there, but super impressive all the way around there. GT, anything?
No, just very impressed with, just continual growth of that tournament and how well that is, attended. So I think the overlooking 50,000 feet view is that wrestling is in a very good position, continues to set really good precedents for kids to get really good looks and really good competition at that tournament. So continue to have that be a supportive thing for the wrestling community out east.
I feel like that tournament, and Grant, you're still recruiting, so you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like if I was coaching NAI or coaching junior college and I could get my pick of the kids that lost in the blood round or lost in the round of 16, you could probably put together a really, really good team. Like the kids that didn't podium, like 1 or 2 rounds out, those top 9 to 16 guys are really good, right?
No, I think it's a great thing. I think also just with tournaments that are preseason based, I know that also a lot of people can't travel. So preseason nationals this weekend in Des Moines, Iowa is going to be another showcase as well. So I think basically just taking a look at those guys that go to those tournaments, the nationally, syndicated tournaments, you get a better understanding of like how they will like maybe transition into high school and or transition into their collegiate experiences, depending upon where they are at in the country. So continue to like pump up those tournaments and continue to like, I know that preseason nationals is already sold out, like no more entries. So
yeah,
very excited about what is upcoming for some national kickoff events.
And that's in your neck of the woods, right? That's in Iowa this weekend?
Yep. Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah. So shout out to that event. USA Wrestling sponsored, obviously. And, there's also an economic component to this, right? If you're a parent, it's hard to send your kid to every tournament in the world. So there'll be some kids that went to Super 32s that don't go to Des Moines and vice versa. So you may see some rematches. You may also see some new talent. And you may see somebody that, maybe didn't win Super 32s that pops up here. So another thing to keep your eye on. The Masters World finished up. A lot of good American success over there. I want to give a shout out to an Iowa Central guy, but a guy that I'm really good friends with. Matt Collum won his age group and weight division. He's a homie of mine. We work together a lot in St. Louis. He's a coach up there in Chicago. We go to the Beat the Streets Gala together every year. So shout out to Matt. He won, I think, 70 kilos. I just know his age group is significantly less than my age group, but congratulations to him. T laughed a little too hard, but that's true. So, but shout out to Matt, really good guy, doing a great job with that program up there at his high school. So had his first state champion last year. So doing really good stuff up there. All right, let me pull up.
How about Oklahoma, David?
What's that?
Staying in the Big 12.
Oh yeah, we can talk about that real quick. Yeah, so that's not official. Okay, so Austin Marsden on his social media posted that the OU, which is going to the SEC, is going to stay as an affiliate member of the Big 12 for wrestling. So that's basically they're in the Mizzou boat now, and that's great for Oklahoma wrestling. It also probably keeps them in the Bedlam duels with Oklahoma State. I would guess. I've never really understood why they wrestle twice a year. I mean, I get it from the sake of, you draw a big crowd, I draw a big crowd. It's good economically, and that's probably a good enough reason because programs need to generate revenue. It's good to show that to your administration. But I would think that both coaches, all else being equal, would rather schedule another duel, like to get a non-conference opponent on your schedule, that you could have. Like I know Oklahoma State's wrestling Arizona State this year, but like if they wrestle Iowa, but like if they could get a Cornell or Ohio State instead of Oklahoma twice, and I'm thinking, you would probably feel the same way. But the good news is, and both schools are obviously Nike schools. I saw the new singlets from OU this year. They look super crispy. Oklahoma State's really done some cool things recently, GT, with those singlets, like the Pistol Pete on the back and some stuff like that. I know you have nothing to do with the design or production of those, but at all, zero creativity on your side of it.
David, I think one of the big reasons it's really important that Oklahoma was able to stay in the Big 12, just for wrestling, and that's all I'm talking about is wrestling, not for any other sports, is because for recruiting wise, if I was going to be wrestling in the MAC or wrestling in some of these other conferences and I was a blue chip kid, I think that's why Missouri wanted to come back because of the competition in the Big 12s. And I think Oklahoma would have felt that also. So I think it's good that they get to stay. And I think it helps them with the recruiting process.
I don't know what's fair or unfair. And that's certainly like a completely, that's subject to interpretation. But I don't think it was really healthy for anybody for Mizzou to be in the MAC, right? Like they were killing those teams. They had a significantly bigger budget. Geographically, it made sense, but they're putting 9 guys in the finals or qualifying 10 guys every year. And then they have these schedules where they didn't hit a lot of the guys. So maybe they're overseeded or underseeded, depending on a given year and a situation. Now, and Mizzou's always scheduled really well in non-conference. They wrestle like Virginia Tech. They're wrestling Arizona State. I think they wrestle Cornell a lot of years. So it's not like Brian Smith doesn't duck anybody, and he's one of the easiest guys in the world to work with in terms of coaching and scheduling. But when your in-conference schedule is deeper, then it makes it easier. So anyway, good news for OU. I don't know. I guess I somehow skewed this to Mizzou, but good news for OU and Coach Kish and company to be able to stay there. And they're making inroads in recruiting. They got a couple good kids coming out of OU. They had one kid flip from OSU to OU. So I think they're making a much more concentrated effort on keeping, some really good kids in state. All right, Mark, let's talk about your picks at 165. You were on podcast last week. So just to review, Grant picked O'Toole, Carr, Caliendo, Amin, Hamidi, Ramirez, Olenek, Facundo. I picked O'Toole, Carr, Amin, Caliendo, Hamidi, Haynes. I have Haynes at 65 and Messenbrink at 57, so I could be really right or really wrong there. Ramirez and Olenek. Mark, you picked Carr, O'Toole, Hamidi, Caliendo, Amin, Ramirez, Hall, and Facundo. So I'm trying to look at the name. You did not pick. I'm trying to see who you didn't pick that we picked. For me, it was Haynes. And then I'd have to figure out, I think you didn't pick Olenek. And then you picked Hall instead of them. So the two big differences are you have Hall instead of those two. You have David Carr winning it. Me and Grant mentioned last week that you correctly said at the beginning of the year, you picked O'Toole. I can't remember if you picked O'Toole or Carr, and I know you'll tell me the truth. But you did say that neither one of them would be a clean sweep, that, each guy would win one. I think you thought each guy would win one going into nationals, but either way,
Yep.
So tell me about your picks this year and what was your actual pick last year?
Last year, I think I picked O'Toole to win it.
Okay.
But I thought David Carr would give him fits early on in the year, which he did, because he'd never wrestled somebody that style. Now, I'm going to reverse it this year. I think Carr, because of the wrestling room that he's in this year, I think is going to have a little bit different styles. I think he's going to perform a little bit differently. And he's obviously, we know he's been a national champ before. He's talented enough to win it. So I'm going to put it in his court this year. I think he wins it. I think he will lose to O'Toole during the year once. whether it's in the tournament or the duel, but I think he will lose once. But I think he wins nationals this year at that weight.
So, real quick, just to jump in, GT, I think we said last week, and I'm not going to go look it up, but I think Iowa State duels Mizzou February 25th or something late in the year. And then, it's like, I think it was the 25th, 2 weeks later is Big 12, 2 weeks later is NCAA. So they would essentially wrestle 3 times in 4 weeks. Does that sound right, Grant?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Mark, if I hold your feet to the fire, who wins those 3 matches in what order?
I think Carr wins the first match. I think O'Toole wins the duel. I think Carr wins the Big 12s, and I think Carr wins the NCAAs. Okay.
Tell us why you picked Peyton Hall.
Peyton Hall, because he was an All-American in the past, or right up there to be an All-American. He's really talented. And I think he's good enough to place. And I don't have him placed in the top 3 or top 4. I just put him in. I put him in down there toward the bottom. I think he comes from the Big 12. I think he's good enough to play. So I picked him.
Yeah,
that's probably the only reason.
You just made a pick different than us, Mark. You don't have to defend it. We're just putting it out.
I think I might have to, so I'm just telling you.
Okay. All right. So we're on fantasygrade.com, which again, guys, I think is the best source for looking at these rankings. The website's free. They do the pick contest and all that stuff. But what they have here is intermat flow and wins rankings on the far right if you're looking. And then they take the average of those and then plug those in. So a couple things to point out here. Nelson Brands is only ranked by flow. I think we all agree he's probably going to end up coming back. But here are the rankings if you're just listening. Starachi 1, Foca 2, Lewis 3, Griffith 4, Brands 5, Mako 6, Edmund Roos 7, Karchla 8, DeVos 9, Washington 10, Whitlake 11, Picklow 12, McCoy 13, Pasuic 14, Canigliaro 15, Lennox Woolix 16, Mikey O'Malley 17, names like Andrew Sparks, MJ Gaitan, Jackson Turley, all some guys that have gotten some run in the past. Max Mailer transferred from Michigan to Wisconsin. Adam Kemp is back. Wisconsin's starting to get some transfers too. So I'm going to say something here. I'm not going to make this pick, but I just think it's something to be aware of. I feel like Starachi mentally is where RBY was last year. Like, I don't think RBY was 100% into it. The rumor was like he wanted money to come back. He's already thinking about MMA, maybe the Olympics. Starachi's talking about MMA and the Olympics all the time. And I guess I certainly cannot relate to it because I would love to be able to say that I was a 3-time national champion with a chance to win 4. I just wasn't that good. And so it's probably not fair to put my mindset on him because I wasn't that good. But I guess when you're that good, it's easily to be distracted by other things because you just feel like you can go win these matches. Other major things are Griffith moves up from 65 to 74. And then the returning All-Americans at this weight, let me pull that up real quickly. Starachi was first, Foca third, Mackay fourth, Nelson Brands fifth, Plott sixth, Mako 8. Plott is going up to 84 from 74. Shane Griffith was 5th at 65. So you have 5 returning All-Americans from 74, and then a returning All-American at 65, and a returning round of 12 at 65 at Karchla. Karchla's probably worth mentioning. Super high ceiling guy, had Plott beat in the under 23 World Trials before he was up 9 and got caught in like an 18-point lace one match. And I think he was cutting a lot of weight. He's also wrestled Keegan O'Toole really close at nationals. GT, not picks first, but just impressions of the weight first. And Whitlake's down at 74. Sorry, Whitlake's down at 74 and transferred to Oregon State.
Yeah, I think, at this weight class, there's a lot of bona fide talent. 3 national champions that were already kind of previous national champions at this weight class. I think new people at the weight class, which is new. Karchla bumping up, Griffith bumping up, Whitlake basically dropping down. I don't know if that would be like like kind of crazy. We all knew that he was kind of like more of a 74 pounder than an 84 pounder when he was at Okie State. I think it's, Foca, we've all kind of been high on ever since he went to Cornell. So like he had a really, really good national tournament last year. Very excited to see a lot of, I would say, a lot more proven talent at this way. You know how we've been kind of talking about a lot of like upcoming freshmen or like underclassmen. I think this one is going to be dominated by almost all seniors. I think every single All-American probably is going to be a senior at this weight class, or like, a COVID senior.
When you look at the top 11 guys and 9 of them are seniors, just looking at this list, that's the other cool thing about this website. Like, again, it's super inclusive. Mark, thoughts on the weight?
Yeah, it's good weight. I agree 100% with you, David. I don't know where Starachi is wanting to wrestle. I think he's already wanting to be an Olympic champion. So I don't know how much he's putting into that compared to collegiate style. And then we had Mekhi Lewis a year and a half ago, didn't even want to wrestle anymore. And, kind of wanted to get out of it. And then they got him back. And I mean, it's not the same Mekhi Lewis that I saw win the national tournament 3 years ago. Let's put it that way.
Well, he was so beat up that one year. I mean, we had that shoulder harness on, and that'll make you hate the sport when, like, yeah, I mean,
agree. So, but I mean, just mentally, I don't know where this weight's going to end up going, to be honest with you. I think Starachi obviously is head and shoulders above everybody. I think he's proven that. I do. I think he could go out and
Let's talk about that for a second. The one time he wrestled Foca, it was really even on their feet, and then he just rode the dog out of him and won basically on, I can get away, you can't, so I get riding time. And I'm not saying, like, if you ride me for 2 minutes, like, that's an easy solution to figure out. But if I can figure out how to get one in a minute and I can ride you for 10 seconds, then it's 1-1. And, Foca's pretty scrambly.
I agree.
And obviously, Starachi is too. So I'm not sure, and he's wrestled Mekhi, and they had that unbelievable overtime match, in the NCAA finals. I mean, Starachi's a guy that finds a way to win matches.
He does.
And, on the fantasy side of it, he actually scored the most points of anybody at nationals last year, but a lot of that had to do with him pinning Labriola in the finals where, most people don't get bonus in the finals. And, even if Labriola got off his back, he probably would have majored him. But you just generally don't see those kind of scrambles. So let me ask it to you guys this way, and then we'll make picks, and then I think we'll be just about on time. GT, I'll let you go first. Who is the hardest matchup what is the guy that if you picked one guy in one match to beat Starachi, who is the guy that you would pick?
Well, I think to tag on to your guys' conversation about, Starachi and kind of his abilities and like how he's kind of been, as dominant as he has been at this weight class. A lot of these guys, I think the way that you can beat Starachi is to beat him late or to snag overtime, or I don't see a lot of people riding Starachi, turning Starachi, or really just dominating him on his feet.
Right.
So I think whoever can keep it close or win a big scramble, I think that, or catch him in something crazy. Now, once again, same thing that happened with Marcus Coleman and Aaron Brooks last year. Crazy scramble. Marcus caught him on his back. That's definitely a way to beat Aaron Brooks, or a way to beat Aaron Brooks.
Might be the way to beat Aaron Brooks. The only way.
Especially for college kids, right? So Keck Eisen and him would always have epic battles. He's not subject to getting scored on, but I don't see Starachi giving up a lot of takedowns in general over his course of his career. So I think you're going to have to sneak one late. I think now with a 3-point takedown, it's going to be a little bit more dicey for that point differential to come back, right? So if you do snake one late at the end of a period,
yes,
it changes the dynamic of what this is. So to answer your question, I think whoever can keep it close, and I think I'm going to give you a couple of different guys' names. I think Nelson Brands, because he's a grindy, very hard-nosed hand fight type guy.
He lost him by 1 point last in the duel. Yeah. So great point. Yeah.
Him, I think Makai Lewis.
Overtime match. So yeah, for sure.
Also extremely stingy on his feet. Also can make big things happen. And I think probably just because probably hasn't wrestled him a ton and has a little bit more length, probably Shane Griffith.
Yeah.
Now they're going to get a chance to wrestle each other a few times, dual, conference, nationals. So probably be able to figure it out a little bit. But those are the three that I would put right up there. Now, once again, already Foca is ranked number 2, already proven. So that was already kind of like me, very chalky type pick. But
sure. Yeah.
I picked the next 3 guys based off of style and just presence.
Marco?
Boy, I agree 100% with Grant. Last year at the national tournaments, Nelson Brands, I don't know if you guys remember this, wrestled Foca and took him down twice in the first period, and then chose down and got ridden like he'd never been down before and got turned. And that was a difference in the match. And even Brands came off the mat saying, I figured out that I'm not very good on the bottom. That's something I really need to improve on. So Brands can wrestle on his feet with pretty much anybody. And I think he will give him problems. And I think Griffith, I think people might forget how good Shane Griffith is. And he is talented. And to me, if I had to pick one guy that I think could beat Sirachi this year and beat him early in the year, I'd say it's Shane Griffith. Now, can you beat him at nationals? I don't know about that because nobody's done it. He's just proven he can turn it on whenever he wants. So, but I think those 2 guys would basically have the best shot.
Yeah, and I know you don't mean it this way, but it's not like Starachi when you say turn it on. It's not like he loses a bunch of matches in the regular season. His dual match with Nelson Brands was like really disappointing. Like he just didn't do anything but ride him long enough to win 2-1. But maybe he had a bad weight cut, maybe whatever. I mean, it was 2-1, but it wasn't really close. Like Nelson Brands never touched his legs. I'm going to throw one in there, and I don't think it's likely to happen, but just style-wise is interesting. Peyton Mako's super scrambly, right? And if you get in that Passover scenario, Carter Starachi's really good at not getting in those scrambles, right? Like he's really good at neutralizing you. That's how he pinned Labrioli, caught him on the way through. But if you can get past that, and now you're in scrambles and you like to scramble maybe more than the other guy, that's a guy that I think, at least has like he's got a pitcher's chance, right? Like maybe I can throw it by him a couple times. And I agree with you, GT, completely. Like the way to get it, especially with the new rules, are you sneak a takedown at the end of the period, right? Like you're way better than me, but like you trip and fall and I grab your ankles with 2 seconds left in the period. Now I'm winning 3-0. And now it's going to take some work to get back into it, especially if I don't pick down, like you don't get to point on top and tire me out. Now you got to come to me. And if I'm defensive, they don't call a lot of stalling on your feet anymore, as long as you sort of stay in the middle. So, all right. That being said, Mark, you didn't get to make picks last week on the air.
Oh, I did. I picked. It just was off air.
Mark, don't interrupt me. I said you didn't get to make picks on the air last week. Don't interrupt the host. Okay. So having said that,
okay,
I'm going to let you go first. Don't go real fast because I got to type these in. Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
Well, I know I want to do something crazy here, David, because I didn't even say his name, but I'm not going to. I'm going to say Starachi number 1.
Okay.
And I'm going to say Makai Lewis number 2.
Okay.
I'm going to say Shane Griffith 3.
Okay.
Nelson Brands 4.
Okay.
Foca 5.
Wow. Okay.
Karchula 6.
Okay.
Mako 7.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with Cade DeVos 8th.
Okay. So I'm assuming that the Karchula was where you were going to make the crazy pick.
Karchula beating Sirachi in the quarters. Yeah.
You're not doing it.
No, but I think Karchula could beat Sirachi. I really do. I think he's really good on his feet. and he's strong enough to wrestle with him, and he's very stingy. He's hard to get in on, and he's really good from that front headlock position, David. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pick Karchla to beat him during the year one time.
Okay. All right. But these are your picks for nationals.
These are my picks for nationals.
Like there was one weight where you forgot about a guy and we let you make an edit. So like this is it though. You're good here.
I'm good.
All right. GT, go ahead.
All right. Carter Starace, national champion.
Okay.
Kai Lewis, finalist.
Okay.
Nelson Brands, third.
Okay.
Chris Foca, fourth.
Okay.
Shane Griffith, fifth.
Okay.
Sixth, Whitlake.
Okay.
Seventh, Karchla.
Okay.
8, DeVos.
So Peyton Mako doesn't place.
And Ed Ruth.
Yeah. Neither one of you have Ed Ruth. Whitlake, that's the only one I had to type in and not copy and paste. Okay. So, Mark, will you attest to this, that before, I didn't pick this in the regular season, but before the tournament, I said that I picked Arujau to win, to beat them both.
Yes, you did say that.
But that was like kind of watching RBY.
You didn't predict him to beat both. You said he could beat
No. I predicted him in the
Okay.
USA Wrestling Journalist Contest. I picked
Oh,
him.
you did, yes.
Yeah. But I said it to you too, and I bet on it, like on the
Yes.
fantasy stuff.
Okay.
I'm wrong all the time. I'm just saying this. So I just don't know if Starace gets senioritis. That's the only thing. Like, he's the best guy, right? Like, it's you can't win this many matches. So I'm not going to pick against him, but I feel like if we do picks before nationals, I may end up doing that. I'm going to take Starace first. I'm going to take Foca second. I'm surprised you guys have Foca at 4th and 5th. I mean, it's not a big deal, but I feel like, he's really good. I'm going to take Griffith third. Think here. Let me see.
By the way, just so you know, David, that's only 2 losses. Okay.
What's that?
For Foca to make it to a bronze medal match or a 5th place match. It's only 2 losses at the tournament.
No,
So
you're right.
we're not like taking a crazy dive on him. It's like,
No, you're right. And he's going to be in a bunch of 1-point matches. So, it's not crazy.
And he's really good on top, Grant. He's really good on top. But the 3-point takedown is what's going to get him this year.
I could also see Foca getting 3-point tilts, boys.
4-point tilt. He can go 4-point tilt now. Yeah.
2, 3, or 4.
Yeah. I'm going to go Mako 5th. I'm going to go Brands 6th. Who did I miss here?
I don't know.
Foca
I
2,
don't know
Griffith 3.
3rd and 4th.
Oh, no. I skipped Mackay. Sorry. I got Mackay 4th.
Who's
Okay.
3rd?
Shane Griffith.
Okay.
All right, let me start over. Starace 1. Foca 2, Griffith 3, Lewis 4, Mako 5, Brand 6. I like Whitlake 7th. And I like Karchla 8th. So I feel like I kind of stole from you guys, but that's the advantage of being the oldest guy, getting to go last. Not the oldest guy, but the oldest guy doing the pod. So let's wish best of luck to the ladies that are still wrestling and to our Greco team. Best of luck to all the athletes wrestling at preseason nationals this weekend. Let's see if there's anything else. No, I think that's it. Congrats to OU. Congrats to Matt Collum. Congrats to all the Super 32 boys and girls winners. For Mark and GT, I'm David. We'll speak to y'all next week.